So, two of the worst people online had a conversation. Matt Walsh, a fascist, and Tucker Carlson, also a fascist. And they spoke about the destruction of gender roles and whether, women should have the right to make choices about their own life. So, let's get into it because at this point, my channel is a string quartet on the sinking Titanic. And I don't have power in that. The world's a pretty depressing place. So let's just have some fun and mock fascists because why not?
It scrambles the gender roles. That's what I notice, and that's what upsets me most, because I think everything is built on biology, on nature, and gender roles are a function of nature. And I think if you scramble that, if you confuse that, if you convince people that there's no difference between men and women, like that's when civilization falls. Then you have like women fighting your wars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And gender roles is another one.
How can you not evaluate from that this is fascism? Because people see that as normal, like, oh, gender roles are prescribed, men do this, women. No, like we've got anthropological evidence that women did a range of jobs, men did a range throughout different civilizations, different tribes. This stuff isn't built in stone. It isn't. Obviously, like the evidence. So the idea that they think, oh, it can't change. Well, it has changed. And it will continue to change. And they're trying to fight nature, which is so ironic. They talk about human nature. They are trying to fight the natural change. If there's any natural state in nature, it's change, the inevitability of change. They're trying to fight that. But they're not winning because the average person doesn't believe this. They're not falling for just how just depressing this is. It's pretty depressing.
That, again, it goes back to human civilization worked a certain way for thousands of years.
No, it didn't.
And it seemed to work. And we went from...
Based on what? Seemed to work. How? How did it work? What, monarchies? Just suppression of women? Suppression of men? Men were as miserable as women. Probably in some cases even worse because men didn't have it good either. So, oh yes, the system worked for thousands of years. Based on what? And also, the system over thousands of years has changed massively. There would have been times where women had more rights, certain civilizations. When men had more, mostly men having more, there isn't just one period of time like, oh, like we just had patriarchal society, and then in the early 20th century, everything went to pot. No, people have it better now than they've ever had it. And that's partly due to feminism and the rights women have won. Contraception, education, autonomy of their bodies. This is a good thing. But to them, it's not. They hate women. That's all it is about. It's just male insecurity projecting out their hatred onto women. That's all it is. That's fascism in a nutshell.
From, mud huts to walking on the moon, if you believe we walked on the moon, which I absolutely do.
Boy, you are taking some bold positions this morning.
That is bold. That is bold. I've discovered.
You're taking on the entire internet.
We went from there to there with a kind of basic structure, with a basic setup. Gender roles is one of them. There's like this they were so basic, so
that's interesting using that framing because they're saying, oh, it's biological, it's nature. Gender roles, that's it. They're not talking about sex here. They're talking about gender roles. And gender roles are constructed by definition. So they're even wrong on their own terms. They're not even aware of the word, what gender means. Gender is a social construct of expectations associated with men and women, which have changed inherently in the definition. So they don't even know what they're talking about. But obviously they don't. It's a grift. They don't necessarily believe it. It's culture war. It's distraction. It's meaningless. It's theocratic fascism. That's what they like. And it pays well, I guess. That's it. It doesn't matter. Problems, the future. I mean, these guys have kids. Do they not care? Obviously they don't. Because this is... we're in the most depressing timeline, aren't we? Obviously. We are. Like, yes, things could be way worse. But this trajectory is just, I'm just really, yeah, depressed.
Fundamental that you didn't have a word for it. You know, if you go back to 1700 and use the term gender roles to anyone, they're not going to have any idea what the hell you're talking about, even though their entire society is structured around it.
Exactly.
And this is true even now. If you go outside of the kind of liberal Western bubble, which I've done once when we were doing What is a Woman. I went to
Once.
we went to Kenya and we talked to the Maasai tribe in Kenya.
Did they know what a woman was?
They did know what a woman was. They were confused by the question, not because they didn't know the answer, but because they couldn't possibly understand why it would even be asked. Right.
I bet they didn't. I bet he's being dishonest there. Their notion of a woman, why would they care? They're just people. Like, they wouldn't probably even differentiate in a lot of cases. Like, oh, men are this. Like, no, women do this and men do that. Like, everyone has their role in the community, and they wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, like, these are the roles that have always been. It's like, no, it's, he's ill. He's an ill man.
But then I remember a lot of this didn't make it in the movie because it wasn't totally connected, but talking about gender roles with them. And again, they had no idea what that term even meant. But their whole society is completely structured around it. It was, if you're a man, this is what you do. If you're a woman, this is what you do. And that's it. And I remember asking one.
And this is the anti-intellectual position. Like, and they can't question that. They probably do. Like, oh, why do we do this? Well, what's wrong with questioning that? The idea that, oh, because a tribe does it, that we've got to do it. That's just illogical. There's no argument there. It's like, oh, because we probably did have gender roles that were pretty rigid for a long time. But why do we have to, just because we've done something for a long time, doesn't mean it's right. But that's their argument. Like, oh, we've always done it this way, so let's just continue, even though, does it make people happy? In most cases, not.
One of the women, I was in her hut, which is actually made of like cow dung, and it's a one-room hut, and they all sleep on one bed, you know, mud floor. And she was telling me what she does all day as the woman of the house, which is she takes care of the house, she takes care of the kids. And I asked her if she was happy doing this, and she laughed at me because it was such a ridiculous question, because of course she is. And then I asked about depression, and this might be in the movie. I said, you know, where I come from, there's a lot of people are depressed. And one of the guys said to me, well, we don't have that here. We don't do that. We don't have depression. That's not a thing here.
See, he said they're so dishonest because he's trying to make that link, and he might say it explicitly, between women having autonomy and freedom and questioning gender norms and depression. There's no correlation there. Maybe about capitalism, maybe inequality, maybe the fact people have to work 40, 50 hours a week just to survive. Maybe that's why they're depressed. And people would be happy if they had their needs met, basic needs met. They live in a mud hut. They have food, they have shelter, they have community. He's kind of making the argument against capitalism in a way without even knowing it. And also the fact that they weren't aware of it. They weren't aware of it because they don't build their whole lives on it like you do. Like, men are this, men have to be this. Like, they just kind of fell into it. And if they were given the chance, they probably would question it and go like, well, why do we do this? Maybe men could do it. And they might even come to that conclusion. You're assuming so much here that isn't necessarily true.
And that's not, and you know, of course there's unhappiness. It's not like a utopia. I wouldn't want to live there, to be perfectly clear about it. But you do notice that in these societies that are structured around gender roles, there's a lot of anxiety and hangups that they don't have because they know they have a basic concept of who they are and what they're supposed to do.
Well, they're not at war with nature every day.
Right.
You can't beat nature. If I go out,
You kind of can though. We've done that. Civilization has pretty much beat nature. It's a big question whether we can beat climate change, but yeah, we're pretty good at beating nature. We go against nature. Humans are a very specific and unique species. We go against nature every day. The fact I'm doing this, I've got two screens in front of me, a microphone, I'm going against nature. So the idea that we wouldn't do this with gender and the prescriptive roles that he wants, because he doesn't do this. Like, what does he do? What does he do for a living? Is he like he's going against nature by his own terms. Does he go out and forage for food? Does he build a house, a dwelling every evening? Of course not. But again, irrational arguments, and people buy into this. Like, and there's two types of conservative. There's mental illness, like Kanye West, and people are just ignorant. And then there's grifters, and he's a grifter. He's just a grifter. He doesn't believe any of this stuff, and I don't think Matt Walsh does either. I don't think he believes a single thing about this. He's going, yeah, this works. It pays bloody well. I can get people angry. It's easy to do. Just say nature, have no arguments. And, this is their day's work. A 2-hour interview, day's work, 2 hours, in and out, bing bang bosh. Amazing.
Into a blizzard with my boxer shorts. I don't care what, my resolve level is or my courage. It's like I'm going to freeze to death because you can't beat nature because it's bigger than you because God created it. Right.
Yeah. And we are certainly discovering that in this culture. And that's why, you could go on TikTok which I don't recommend, but you can go on TikTok anytime and it's a whole genre of video now on TikTok where you've got these young women. It's usually young women who do these videos, these selfie videos where they're in tears crying because they went out into the working world and they found it so miserable and depressing and empty and they just hate it and they don't want to work and they don't want to do it
But that's capitalism. No one wants to do that. Like, it's kind of interesting that he's indirectly critiquing capitalism here. Like, people are depressed, people don't want to work. Maybe we change that? No? Okay. Great.
and they're in despair over it. And that's exactly what's happened. I think we were the message to women.
Wait, so you're not only against gay adoption, you're against women working at banks?
Yeah. For the most.
Where did you get all these opinions?
It's not the ideal.
Probably on a little card. He got his check from the Daily Wire. So have this insane opinion. Have this insane opinion. Well, about teenage girls. Although that was before the Daily Wire. Have this insane, and it will make people who have empty lives, who don't want to challenge the system, who are insecure, they want to blame all the problems on women and gay people and trans people and wokeness. It will make them feel good about themselves because they live empty shells of themselves. They don't have the courage to question the system, power, privilege. They just think they're the good guys, they're the victims, and it's wokeness that is killing us all.
Setup, because I mean, and just to be clear, I don't. I think that there are families where both parents have to work.
Is he looking at a little cue card there? Like, where's my next talking point from Daily Wire? Oh God, we've done that one. We've done attacking trans, attack women. What's next?
I think there are a lot of families where they think both parents have to work, but they don't actually have to. It just depends on what your priorities are. And if you're
in America, and in the UK too, if you have kids, both parents have to work generally. All depends where you live. Unless you are, privileged. We have massive income inequality outside of London. We are basically Mississippi. We're a dead country in terms of the economy, job markets. We're a poor country by any definition. It's only London that really races up to the 6th richest country on the planet. So the idea, but they don't want to make it easier to have kids and make it to a situation where, yeah, maybe a man could work and the woman's they don't want to increase wages. So it's not like he has the solution here. It's like, oh no, just work hard and get a better job. Okay, but what if you can't? Well, that's your problem, isn't it? You should get a Daily Wire contract like I did. Okay, which is probably quite easy actually in a way, but how many contracts are there? Maybe only a couple, so never mind.
You're willing to make the sacrifices. I think most families, if people say to me all the time, well, I'd love for it to be one income. I'd love to homeschool. I'd love to have a family. Like, we can't afford it.
God.
But you went to Harvard and had a big...
Homeschooling is the devil. If you want to homeschool your children, I would very much distrust you, because what are you going to be homeschooling them? Like, why are you trying to take them out of society where they can socialize? Like, that's a red flag.
Trust fund. It's easy for you to say
Right,
that.
Exactly, yeah.
No, you didn't have any trust fund, and you didn't even go to college.
Right.
And you worked at Blockbuster, and then you told me this last night at dinner. I had no idea. You worked at a couple Blockbusters.
He's just a working class hero, Matt Walsh. Just a working class hero. He made it. He worked hard. He, spoke about, impregnating teens in a car. You didn't do that, did you? He did. He put the work in. He put the hard work in so he could benefit from these amazing talking points that he had written on a little card for him from the Daily Wire. Why didn't you do that? Very silly, aren't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I was an assistant manager on the boat.
Is that true?
I was. That's how low their standards were towards the end.
It was definitely toward the end.
I left Blockbuster, and then they went out of business shortly thereafter. So you can connect the dots on that.
It's not the first. By the way, it's not the first company you've worked at that's no longer with us, which is interesting. You are the destroyer. But you got, how old were you when you got married?
25.
Then how long after that did your wife get pregnant with twins?
It was about a year and a half. Yeah.
And that point, I assume she was raising the twins, right?
Right. Yeah. I was working. I was making.
He doesn't do anything. Matt Walsh does nothing. These kind of guys, they do nothing in the domestic setting. They won't even wash a ball after themselves because they're so entitled. They think, oh, that's the woman's job. And that's what he's talking about here. Like, men go and work. They are the providers. And women just do everything else. Raise the kids, cook, clean, run errands, mash his feet. Like, and that's it. That's what we're fighting over. That's the core of it, male insecurity. The woke capitalism, culture war, all roads lead back to male insecurity. And it has to impact everyone's lives. Women, trans, children. It all goes back to the ego of men like this. Great, wonderful. I'm so happy.
About $40,000 a year at the time. Half that when we first got married. But by the time we had kids, I was making about $40,000 a year.
And that was the only income in the family.
That was the only income in the family.
And no trust fund at all.
No. No savings of any kind. This was a time. There was one time I remember I went to the gas station to get gas, and my card was declined. Got insufficient funds, and I'm at the gas station. I have no money. I can't, and the gas tank is empty because, like, when you're broke, your gas is always almost empty. And so I had no gas. I had insufficient funds, and I remember thinking, this is after I had 2 kids already. This is how broke we were.
But what's the point? Is he saying here? Like, should we try and raise people's living standards? Like, what's the point?
But I remember thinking, I'm going to have to ask someone at a gas station for money. I'm going to have to do this. I can't believe I'm going to have to. But I didn't. I just started looking under the chair for coins, and I found about like $1.50 in coins, and I went and paid for gas, $1.50 worth of gas in coins, enough to get home, and then we'll figure out the problem. But anyway, the point is, we had no money.
And his conclusion from that was, bloody women. If women weren't having autonomy and rights and stuff and, choices in the world, it wouldn't have to be this way. It's not capitalism, inequality. the economic system, the, you know, transfer of wealth to the top. It's not that. It's just bloody women. Urgh, bloody women. If they just didn't work, everything would be fine. Ugh.
We were very broke. And, money went a little bit farther back then, but not that much farther. I mean, this wasn't 50 years ago, right?
How many years ago was
This was 11 years ago.
Right.
It was
11 years ago. All of us remember 11 years ago. It was same country.
Yeah, it was the same country. And we decided we wanted to have one income. We wanted to have a one income family. So family of 4 on one income. It was not.
I don't think we decided. I think he decided. Let's be honest here. I think he's indicating that was probably the case.
A high income at all. It can be done. I think in most cases, you just have to be willing to make the sacrifices. And a lot of people aren't. And that's fine too, because you have to decide on what your priorities are. And so you might say, look, it's a priority to us that we have a big enough house that each person can have their own room. We don't want to share rooms for kids. It's a priority to us that we have 2 cars, that we can go on vacation, a nice vacation once a year, that we can have 2 or 3 TVs, that everyone can have a smartphone with all the plans. And we want to have, we want to have 5 different streaming subscriptions, and we want to be able to eat.
Yeah, pretty much the basics of existence. I know these seem like luxuries. People say, oh, you got a flat screen TV. And flat screen TVs are cheap. But if you want to, have a normal standard of life where you have a few subscriptions, a phone, like these things add up. And if you're going to just have one income, that is a challenge for a lot of people because cost of living has gone up massively in the last 20 years. Yeah, there's a lot of cheap stuff. Clothes have gone down. Food has gone down. But overall, people are paying like at least 40, 50% of their wages on rent. And then we are kind of told to have more now. Like, does he talk about that? Like, because he's kind of saying, oh, well, it's not the system. You just need to, your priorities are all wrong here. Like, don't have Netflix. It's almost the avocados on toast argument. Like, if you want a family, prioritize. Just don't have any luxuries. Just don't really have a life. Really?
Eat out whenever we want. Like, that's a priority to us. And okay, if that's a priority, then yeah, in a lot of cases, you're going to need double income. But if you're willing to say, okay, we're gonna downsize our home, we're gonna share bedrooms, we're gonna have one TV, we're gonna have one car, we're gonna go on much more modest vacations, and we're gonna cut things down to the bone a bit because it's worth it to us to be able to keep mom at home and to be able to homeschool or whatever it is. So I think if you're willing to say that, a lot of people could do it. But do you think
really selling it to me? That's pretty depressing. But that's it. You have to sacrifice yourself. That's fascism. You have to sacrifice your body, your desire, any fun in life, any dreams. It's just you have to just get by and sacrifice your body for the state, for reproduction of the white Aryan race, and that's it. That's your life. The bare minimum. Bare minimum. That's what they want from you. And actually, he's being quite honest here and trying how he's selling it because people don't want this. People want to have a good life where they go on holiday, they do things, they are able to have the odd luxury. That doesn't mean they have to be millionaires, but they want a good standard of living. Everybody wants that. But he doesn't want that. He just wants you prioritize just the mother staying at home. That's it. That's his vision for the future. Pretty depressing. So, on that note, hit the like button, and I'll see you next time.